Welcome to Her Media Diary, the podcast where African women share real stories, bold moves, and behind the scenes moments that shaped their journeys. I'm your host, Dr. Yemisi Akimbobola. And with each episode, we're pulling back the curtain on what it really means to build a media career, to break barriers, and to stay true to your voice. Whether you're just starting out or already making waves, this space is definitely for you. In today's episode, our focus is on the rise of technology facilitated gender based violence, or TFGBV, as some of us will know it, and how artificial intelligence, social media platforms, and digital surveillance are shaping and sometimes threatening women's safety and freedom online. Joining me is a fierce advocate and expert in this space, Sandra Aceng. Sandra is the executive director of Women of Uganda Network, a leading voice in gender and ICT across Africa. Phenomenal. And from shaping digital rights and policies to protecting women's expressions online, Sandra brings years of experience and a feminist lens to this issue, which is very important. In this episode, we're talking about Sandra's personal journey and into activism, the digital realities of women in Uganda, how AI may be reinforcing gender harm, and what the path forward looks like for a safer digital space. Sandra, a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thank you for having me as well.
Great. So, we'd love for you to take us back to your early years. What was it like growing up in Uganda? Assuming you did grow up in Uganda.
Oh, yes. So I did grow in Uganda. I grew up from a small village in a district called Oyam District that is based in northern Uganda, whereby I did a bit of school from there. Then I moved to a city called Lira, where I did my primary school, and also moved to another city again, Gulu City, where I did my secondary studies, and moved to Kampala, where I did my university school and all that. When I moved to Kampala, where I did my bachelor's in social sciences. That is at the Makerere University School of Women and Gender Studies. It was a fun. I don't know what is the right word, but it was a very
Hmm.
mixed experience whereby during that time when we were at campus, we didn't own a computer, where when we are doing our coursework, what you have to do is search for your information and then write on the paper and then take it to an internet cafe for it to be typed. Why? Because I didn't own a computer, because I didn't know how to use a computer probably. And it was stressful also to own one because everyone looked for you. For example, if you just take just 1 minute to go and shower, you find your computer gone. So you find yourself in the middle of do you want to live a free life where you want to go have some fun at the club without having to carry your computer with yourself, without thinking that your computer is now your new baby. So that is how it was. But after finishing campus, where one of the interesting course units that I did was also around gender and technology. So I it became a reality after that to start preparing for a career. So I started doing short courses, and luckily enough, at the School of Women and Gender Studies at Makerere University, they used to also offer a fairly scholarship. Have payment for, especially for girls to be able to pursue technology as a course for them to be able to prepare them for their for their skills. So that is where really I also that's how my journey of where I grew up from and the experiences I also experienced from campus to after campus. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna. I mean, you said a lot of things that I'd really love to unpack during the course of this conversation, but I want to go back to all of those movements from one city to another, like tell us about that period. What was driving all of that kind of movement across different parts of the country? What was growing up like? What was your dynamics at home?
So what really caused that movement is getting better education. Yes, getting better education, and it was really more of influenced by where I grew up, which was a rural setting that didn't have maybe better schools. So parents would be sort of in a cycle whereby if a parent of Sandra recommends this school that is good, probably you find that the whole village might be going to that school. So I think that is what really influenced my movement from one city to another just to pursue education. Yes.
And how many you were? How many of you were in your household, and what was growing up like?
We were eight, and unfortunately, in 2017, we lost our brother. So we're eight, and I'm the second last born in our family. Yes.
Okay, so tell us more about those early years, though, in that dynamic of family of eight and you being the second to last born. What was that like for you?
I think for me, it was first of all growing up in that big family as well, but also seeing your brothers, your sisters going to this school, and you also being inspired by what they do and being actually even better than them, in the what in the in your education. So it was more of me looking up up to them, but also sort of just I don't know what is the right word, but sort of just looking up to what they do and trying to also do what they would do, what I would do in my education. So it was more of, oh, I want to be like maybe my big sister, how she's focused, how she has studied from all the way from primary school and to secondary school. And growing up, we also grew up whereby we were in this family with our mother by then, and she was able to remember someone who is a primary four dropout, who was able to raise school fees, who was able to um, sell all sort of local breweries to be able to pay for us education at primary, at secondary, and ensuring that all of us actually attain education. And luckily enough, all of us at least went to the university. And now, if you want to advance, you have to work hard, get some money, and also being able to pursue maybe a master's degree or a PhD if you like to advance your knowledge, but also be ready for the career path. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that sounds like such an incredible. Your mother sounds like such an incredible force, navigating all of that alone with eight children and kind of all of that movement to make sure you all have the essential foundation of education that you needed. And it was interesting you were talking about your experience at university, not having a computer, but then also the benefits of not having a computer back then, also. So can
Yeah.
you remember the first time you realized that power of technology, not just as a tool for change, but also as something that can be misused?
So I will just give a bit of how I also started my career and also got into this field. So that also my career really deeply was began being deeply grounded in digital rights, but also in communication, especially for social change. So it was really driven by a passion to amplify the voices of women and marginalized groups in Uganda. And that is because also I was raised up by a single mother back then, and my early career with a civil society organization was focused more on digital literacy, ICT for development, and also advocating really for inclusive access to technology, especially for rural women. So I grew in my role when I joined Women of Uganda Network, also where I actually joined as a volunteer, and initially then I served as a program officer for gender and ICT policy advocacy program. So in that role, I really worked at the intersection of technology and policy, but also analyzing some of the national frameworks like the Data Protection and Privacy Act, and also the Rural Communications Development Policy. By then, it is drafted by Uganda Human Rights Commission, and also advocating for the inclusion of gender perspectives in laws. So my shift, especially into artificial intelligence, but also looking at technology facilitated gender based violence, wasn't just accidental. So it emerged naturally through this work. Um, as I also engaged in more research on technology facilitated gender based violence, I also started seeing clear patterns, especially around how algorithm biases, the platform inaction of handling victims' issues, and also AI generated content like defects were also contributing to some of the emerging issues, such as gender disinformation, silencing women, and also harming, especially structurally silenced women. So this really compelled me to also explore um, what digital harms women face, especially in the technical depth. But I also became very much involved in doing a number of global collaboration. Contributing especially to this book that I really am proud of is technology, yeah, it's technology and domestic violence, and technology and domestic and family violence, victimization, perpetuation, and response, which was also edited by a good friend of mine. So this book also explored a lot of the intersection of tech, AI, and also violence. So a lot of global collaborations that I've also participated to joining several experts advisory boards, such as the AFCON UK, whereby they're conducting also a literature review on perpetrators' behavior in online violence, particularly where AI is also used to automate abuse, and also serving on other advisory boards such as the UNFPA 2025 symposium, global symposium on technology facilitated gender based violence that happened early this year in February, and serving on the UN Women Advisory Committee that working on a handbook on tech facilitated gender based violence, and several others, such as the Accountability Committee by the GNI. So these roles has really given me, I would say, a platform not only to advocate for safer spaces, but also to shape global conversation, because I believe that local realities really shape our global conversation, especially when we talk about ethical use of AI in regards to gender justice, particularly in the global south. So today, being the executive director, I've also led a number of initiatives that combine both community-based intervention, survivor-centered tech platforms, at policy advocacy, and also with the vision to see that technology really empowers rather than harms women, especially.
We're going to unpack each of these aspects. You talked about AI algorithms, and the impact at different levels, um, also in terms of rural women. I'm interested in what you said about you starting off as a volunteer at Women of Uganda Network before now becoming the executive director. Tell us about that journey, because that's quite an inspirational journey of going entering into an organization as a volunteer and today becoming the executive director.
Yeah, so It wasn't an easy journey, I would say. It was yeah, I also don't know how I got into this, but I think it's passion driven, goal oriented, and all that. That's really enabled this journey. For example, when I was a program officer, I was able to also challenge myself to be able to apply for different for example, fellowships. There's this remarkable fellowship that also led to a lot of my exposure to be able to learn as much as possible. So I got a fellowship with the Global Network Initiative and Internews. And at that time, think I was really young, whereby I won 9,000 USD. It was big for me. And I didn't know how to use this money, but it was good that I was surrounded by people who was able to guide me and all that. So that I was able to do a project on researching the impact of internet shutdowns on women's rights online. So when I researched that, I would say that that is one of the products that Uganda has ever had on looking at how internet shutdowns or network disruptions impact women's rights online. And that also led to several other opportunities whereby I was also um, invited by internews. I was like, am I do I deserve this? So I served on an advisory committee that was looking at reviewing applications for grants actually of different initiatives there. And you know where when people say that sometimes you're put in those what's the seat that you feel you don't deserve. Yeah, but I think for me it's about finding what exactly you can do also with the mentorship, and also surrounding yourself with people who are able to guide you to know what you can do. So doing a number of some of those fellowship, I think, really impacted my career, and also being goal oriented, knowing what you want, um, being I would say being respectful to your leaders, doing your work as it is also recommended. Sometimes we do work, and not just the people you work with will recognize your efforts, but the people in your ecosystem are also able to recognize the efforts that you put as well. So that led to my promotion as a program manager. And I also served that also really exposed and also working with a number of teams, learning how to work with supervised teams, and also um, um, mentor and all that. So when then in 2022, our executive director decided to transition to another role. Then I was asked by board members that a chairperson called me and was like, "Oh, so if you are to ever be do you think you can manage?" So I asked myself, why is she asking me this question? And I had sworn never actually to to be an executive director.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Yes, I don't know, but before that, I thought it was a nice role, but also I think it also came at a time whereby I was also looking at transitioning, especially to another another workspace. So it wasn't easy to let go of what I was thinking, and also taking on this role. But I must say that I think this is a role that everyone should actually have a taste of. It makes you a better person. It makes you to learn a lot about people. It makes you to to change certain behaviors, to be patient, to understand that people are different. A lot that you can learn with leadership actually. And you start to do everything, um, thinking of what if I had worn your shoes, what would I feel, So such kind of experiences has really shaped me to be a better person, and I know that if I'm to leave this role one day, because I don't want to be these African leaders that stay in power forever. I think it will really help me to be a better employee wherever I go, because then it has really shaped the way I think, the way I do things, and the way I also behave as a person.
Absolutely, and you wear many hats. So, as a gender researcher, you're digital rights advocate and a policy analyst. How did how did those fields intersect for you, and how did it draw you specifically to issues of technology facilitated gender based violence?
I think it was being a researcher, you're able to really understand the issues, especially that affects or impact women's access, women's use of technology. But also after the research, I think research really also very much impacts or inform advocacy, because for you to be able to advocate for a policy, you should be able to have data, and not just data, but from my perspective, gender inclusive data that is able to inform your position, that is able to influence how you position, or how you think about or analyze policies from a gender perspective. So um, such kind of shapings really was able to influence and also support my work, especially in being in research, um, in policy advocacy, the aspect of being able to know that research also very much play a key role in being able to influence for policies.
Mm. And so, in your experience working with grassroots women and tech users in Uganda, how would you describe the changing nature of gender-based violence in this digital period? I mean, we're well into the digital age; it's nothing new now. But how would you just, describe how is the changing nature of GBV in this context, in today's context?
So I would say that there is a saying that I like to say that you cannot fix what is broken by tech using the law. And that means that for us to be able to fix what has happened, like I said, we need to first maybe do a lot of trainings. We need to first do a lot of capacity building, and that also informs the policy that is being developed. Um, I would say that the current nature of technology facilitated gender based violence keeps evolving, because tech is evolving. The policies may not be evolving, but tech keeps evolving every day. Just yesterday, we didn't know what AI was, but we would hear it as something that would come up. So I would say that now there are also some of the emerging issues, such as gender disinformation, and also different forms of technology facilitated gender-based violence keeps evolving day and night. And now with the existence of AI, we've seen several aspects of defects, and now we also have what is called also chip fakes. And the forms of predictive AI, like GPS navigation apps, just these apps, may in a way take women through maybe unsafe roads, because now we are trying to embrace as much technology as possible. So it might take women to maybe unsafe roads areas at night. And if the app also happens to determine those routes as the fastest on the map, you see that state run systems for public safeties And this could be predictive policing or facial recognition or allied policies. But it can also be used, for example, to surveil gender diverse groups, women, in politics, women in leadership, women journalists who might be maybe researching something that is politically contrary of the state's doing. And this may later result into abuse. This may later result into violence toward them. So uh, we have also had seen things like home security systems that can also be used to stalk women partners, to stalk partners or surveil also domestic workers, and this also help domestic workers who help, and these are people who are usually women in these instances. So there are some of the ways in which technology is evolving, and now with the I think it may lead to increased cases or ways in which the nature of technology facilitated gender-based violence. And now there are various hubs actually that have also emerged in the instances of several apps, such as maybe Telegram, that now has a lot of ads that you don't know whether it's safe, you don't know whether it can be harmful, and when you see some of those groups, they really send sexual explicit images of women, and this also with the aspect of AI, it has enabled it to move as fast as possible. Yeah.
So it's really interesting what you've said about things like as simple and everyday to date, at least, as GPS, your Google Maps, right? And perhaps how it needs to be more intelligent in order to navigate women not to streets that may be notorious for certain types of violence, right? And I just wondered whether you know of work and activities happening around that to try and impact and influence the platforms to, think about incorporating some of these things into their app. So whether it's to, advise against certain roads, etc., irrespective of whether it's the fastest or not. Is that something that you're actively involved in or that you know of innovative ideas around that?
So, for example, as WOUGNET, we run a community-based digital safety workshops, and also we have developed OGBV web portal, and it's www.ogbv.woognet.org. And this platform provides digital security tips, also legal resources, and psychosocial support for survivors, and this has also been able to really see how to strengthen support, especially for survivors. And also on this we have also integrated a chat box with the integration of AI, but the human aspect, whereby AI just helps us to get this information, but with the human interaction, whereby we are able to be the one to respond to these issues. And recently, there was a lady that reached out, whose sexually explicit images was circulated on WhatsApp, and when our images were circulated on WhatsApp, she reached out for help, and we were able to connect her to Meta. But unfortunately, you find that with this with these resources, or with these tech companies in place, there's a lot of bureaucracy that is also involved, but also the fact that there was this specific WhatsApp group that was circulating our images, where it started from. Meta could not, and I understand in regards to the privacy, or some of the policies they have in place, they were not able to do anything with that specific WhatsApp group. What they wanted was her to be able to identify or speak to one of the admins, and they were not willing to do that. So it ended up not being as as effective as we thought. And she wanted to also have some of the legal policies that would support her, but it was very technical for her to be able to understand what are those policies and how can she apply it in her on in our own case. And then as WOUGNET, we've also been able to train a lot of capacity building, especially with the emphasis of holistic security. Especially holistic security is really being able to ensure that we do not only train digital security, but also know that technology facilitated gender based violence can start from online and it can go to the offline. So that's why we also emphasize physical security. I have a laptop here. How am I able to see that the physical security of this laptop is actually safe? Do I have simple things like maybe an external? Where have I put mine? Like an external security. Having some things like the things that yeah, to camera your camera, and also just being aware of your environment. You might be in a hotel, but actually there's a camera that is also recording you. So we have also done a number of that training, and we have also trained recently about 20 trainers of trainee who were also scaling survivor centered approaches to about 60,000 women and girls using our comic books that is very interesting to read, not just in English, but it was also in other languages such as Luganda and Lunyoro. So they're able to go to various communities, schools, markets, to read these books and let them understand that technology facilitated gender based violence is actually an issue. And also do a number of radio talk shows because sometimes we cannot reach everyone through the book, but we also want to see who are the people we can also reach through the radio and some of the safe spaces so that we can deliver messages around not just online gender based violence, but digital rights and the aspect of closing the gender digital divide.
Hello, Her Media Diary listeners. Permit me to introduce to you the Kigali Declaration on the Elimination of Gender Violence in and through Media in Africa. It's a groundbreaking commitment to address the forms of gender violence experienced by women in media and how media reports on gender based violence. So, whether you sign up as an individual or as an organization, it is a sign that you are pledging to consciously play your role in tackling this important issue and working towards creating safer and more inclusive work environments for everyone. Imagine a media landscape that treats every story with balance and every voice with dignity. By adopting the Kigali Declaration, it's not just a commitment, it's a powerful step towards social change. And that change starts with us. So if you are ready to take that bold step and make that social change, visit our website at africanwomeninmedia.com/declaration to read the declaration, to commit to it, and to begin to take action. Yeah, yeah. But I think the example you've given there and also the work you've done demonstrates kind of the different levels of intervention that needs to happen, right? So you've talked about working with the platforms and actually them being unable, or perhaps, I don't know whether it's an element of unwillingness also, but unable to actually take the necessary action needed. And then there's the aspect of working with the policymakers, but then also the aspect of raising awareness as grassroots, as even in the marketplace. But I wonder, like in the example you gave of the WhatsApp group circulating this picture or this content of this woman, what was the role of law enforcement in this, like in terms of police and actually actions they can take? Because surely there's a law being broken there in Uganda, in you know in any country.
So this case actually started with it being reported to the police, but based on what she told us, I think the police did not do anything, and this really calls for the aspect of seeing how do we strengthen our legal an institutional framework in regards to being able to tackle holistically and collectively technology facilitated gender based violence. How do we develop, how do we enforce specific laws on technology facilitated gender based violence? Because most cases, the police do not see tech facilitated gender based violence as a form of gender based violence, but rather they would prioritize someone who has been violated, someone who has been physically violated as a form of abuse. And this also includes being able to criminalize some of the happenings based on our research in 2022, where we researched exploring the impact, the threats, and also the harms of technology facilitated gender based violence. So there was a lot of criminalization around the distribution of non consensual intimate sharing of images and videos, whereby in most cases when a woman, and this happened especially to those who are public figures, and specifically also women. And that is a double standard, especially because you're a woman, you're in the public space, and you're also, you're a public figure. So you face double violence for being a woman, but also being in a space that is perceived as a space for men. So you find that such image or video is being leaked by your ex lover or jaded lover, and when you report the case, the police will instead blame you because they feel sexuality should be something that should be a secret and not public. So they will blame you, and they will not blame the person who shared the image. And that's why it's very important to start now thinking or doing a number of research on perpetrators. Who are the perpetrators of technology facilitated gender based violence? And also, speaking to that, also in regards to the role of the police, I think being able to see how do we mandate platform accountability, which is one of the areas that is really right now being talked about. How do we ensure that platforms are active and not inactive? Um, how do the platforms work with police through the regulations that require that there's privacy, also in content moderation, but also redress mechanism, and also algorithm, which is also one of the aspect that is key. But also, I think very importantly is seeing how, if we are developing those platforms, are this platform being built with the integration of gender sensitive as perspective? Are they be developed by women? Do we have, are we nurturing women who are able to develop these policies? I mean, these platforms that can develop a platform that is favorable and inclusive for everyone. So I think those are some of the things that we need to take into consideration so that we can have a safe and inclusive digital platform for all.
I think if we go to the question of AI and algorithms and the biases of creators, there is that discourse around the fact that when AI tools are being produced by only those out of your context, and we are not ourselves producing our own AIs that kind of understand our context, whether in terms of geography within Africa, within Uganda, but then also in terms of gender, then that creates an environment where you have, young boys or young, young people in Silicon Valley producing something for use in Kampala, and they've never even stepped into Africa, or don't even understand these issues around gender-based violence either. So those are some of the things, critical things that we need to be thinking of. And I know that the African Union have a a policy or some policy work around artificial intelligence in Africa for it to work within Africa. But I just wondered, what are your reflections in terms of that issue of where the creators are and how that's exacerbating the experiences that you're kind of highlighting?
Okay, so thank you for that. I think for me, again, when we're developing AI or creating AI, I think it's also very important that we can have, for example, the perspective of women, and who are the creators of this AI. Because, for example, when we're looking at digital technologies, that have also enabled, for example, the scaling of maybe telecounseling, legal aid, or reporting platform for survivors. I think that involves the ability to being able um, to have AI enabled features included or integrated in this platform. For the case like in Uganda, like I mentioned before, having platforms such as the OGBB portal, that is really a centralized hub that provide legal information, safety tips, but also psychological support. This really helps survivors to be able to report incidents safely and also access. But also, we understand that AI as a tool for prevention, and also it can help early detection. We shouldn't look at AI as something that is bad, but something that can also be an enabler, just like technology. So AI powered systems can also help identify some early warning signs of gender-based violence, particularly in the digital space. For example, we've seen the natural national language processing algorithms that are used on specific platforms like Facebook and also YouTube. So they help really to detect maybe abusive languages, threats, harassment in real time, but also they're able to reflect and also maybe remove harmful content. And also in some instances, you see that AI chatbots are also used to provide anonymous support and referrals for survivors of domestic violence. So when we are in the phase of designing AI, we shouldn't look at it as something that is bad, but we can see how do we have the human rights centric approach integrated into these systems. We have seen in the instances also, let's say, surveillance and also defects, and also how AI can be used to create actually non-consensual defects, pornography, stalker-aware images, and also automate also some of the harassment. But you see, in Uganda and also other parts of Africa, women politicians, activists, and as well have reported the use of defects to tarnish their reputation, but also to intimidate them out of the public life. Um, Surveillance tools such as stalkerware, and it's interestingly during the COVID-19 pandemic, lockdown, there were also employers that were also using it, and in that case, it's called bossware, and it was used to monitor people who to see if they are working really. So that also bridges a lot of privacy and security, and some of the facial recognition system that can also be weaponized by users to control and track victims. So I would say that having the integration of some of the principles, such as the principle of digital development, is very key when we're developing any tool, including the AI hubs platforms, so that we see how do we have design with the user, principles of gender is also included, and also some of the marginalized groups, because AI can also be biased, especially on some of the groups, such as the LGBTI community at large. Yeah, yeah.
And I mean, you're absolutely right that, obviously we are concerned about some of the negative aspects of AI, and this, but this is also an opportunity for AI based solutions as well. So let's talk more about solutions. What are some of the most effective community led strategies you've seen that help women and girls protect themselves online?
So I had actually talked about some. I think being able to see how do you work with the communities, not just training them once, but also how do you consider sustainability in that regards to ensure that once you train, they're able to also see continue with some initiatives in that. For example, as WOUGNET, we have established a feminist-led community network. Especially catering the people, the underserved communities in the rural part of Uganda. So we started in Apache district, that is in northern Uganda, and we scale it to Oyam district. So our community network is really to enable access to the internet and ensure that communities who do not have access to the internet have access. But in most cases, access is first. After access, what else? So we also have been able to establish some of the committees, such as the gender committees, to ensure that they're able to identify the issues that women face in the communities, document them, and also work with WOUGNET to be able to see how to respond to it. And when we did the assessment, especially being guided by the feminist principle of the internet, that was developed by Association for Progressive Communications, we found that one of the challenges that community were facing, besides the digital illiteracy, was also the aspect of digital security aspect, or the threats, the abuse that they face on the internet. They're able to access the internet, but they should be able to know how to safely, securely, and freely access the internet. So we were able to do a number of trainings that was able to give them hands-on skills, checking on their phones, their phone settings, seeing that it's safe, and also giving them just general tips on how to how to enhance their safety and security. Of course, there is nothing like 100% safety, but there are those mechanisms we can have in place, such as having a VPN that can enable safety and security, especially for marginalized communities. So for us, we thought that was a good approach, because it's not just a one-off. There's a community network there; they're able to access internet, but also there's the aspect of women coming together, to talk about their issues, to speak, to gossip. Every time I tell people that gossip is healthy, so long as it doesn't impact one another, and being able to also enhance their skill. I thought that is a good approach of being able to have prepaid internet, especially by WOUGNET, with support from partners such as Association for Progressive Communication, but also Internet Society Foundation that supported this, but also having continuous training such as security and safety, physical security, has also been very helpful. But besides that, there are also networks that we have belonged to. Like I said, we are currently um, contributing to a handbook on technology for city to gender-based violence. So this handbook can be handy if we see how to localize them, have it fun in a way that people can actually learn how to keep safe and how to also protect themselves online. And we're also thinking of the use of games for safety. How do we see ways to learn in a fun way for women to be able to embrace and also learn some of the safety skills on how to protect themselves online.
So I mean, you're clearly very much involved in advocacy, but also at policy level as well. So, what would you say, in your opinion, based on your work and your on the ground understanding of what's happening, what would you say are the kind of policies and frameworks that African countries need now to effectively tackle gender and technology facilitated gender-based violence?
So for the policies, I think when we look at the African Union, what is that resolution? Is it 522? I'm not so sure, but 522 that talks about that was recently developed by the African Union on digital violence. And this will really recognize digital violence as a human rights issue, which is a one step forward, but also it's tried to ask member states to be able to ensure that they have in-country policies that protect and also that protects in-country policies on technology-facilitated gender-based violence that can also enhance safety and security, especially for women and girls. Because we do these things, but we do not have an explicit policy, including Uganda as well. Because currently we have the Computer Misuse Act 2022, and also we have the Data Protection and Privacy Act of 2019. But these policies do not explicitly tackle technology facilitated gender based violence. For example, the Computer Misuse Act talks about only when you misuse, maybe the use of a computer misuse, which is just one aspect when you talk about technology, because tech facilitated gender based violence can happen onto the online and just not really just via the computer. And then the Data Protection and Privacy Act really nothing talks about women's privacy and security, much as civil society organizations try to amend it and also share their inputs. But it talks about the privacy for children. So we understand that some of those happenings can really inform. So having African Union work with different member states to have an in-country technology facilitated gender-based violence policy would be very impactful in shaping conversation strategies and also implementing activities that can collectively and holistically counter technology facilitated gender based violence in different African countries.
Yeah, and you're right. It is the AU Resolution 522, which is titled Protection of Women Against Digital Violence in Africa. And so you were absolutely right on the title on that. And you mentioned earlier on about kind of having feminist approaches in your work as well. And I just wanted that connection between AI regulation, tech design, arms, and policy, etc. And what, in your opinion, what in your perspective and what you've seen that's worked would be a feminist approach to some of these things?
In terms of what you said, AI regulations, tech policy, and all that, I think for me, one of the references that would would really be very helpful, especially when we talk about the feminist principle. Let me just look it up here. The feminist principle of the internet. I think this is a set of principles that work towards empowering women and also queer persons in all diversity to be able to fully enjoy their rights, to be able to engage in pleasure and also play. That's for me how I look at a feminist principle of the internet. And what is very unique or very interesting about the feminist principle of the internet, it talks about access, you know. It talks about the importance of of movement building. It talks about also the aspect of 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 anonymity, the aspect of consent, the aspect, and currently they also integrated something around environmental what something around environment, which is a living document, a document that is trying to shape perspectives, that is trying to shape how we do our implementation, how we ensure that not just women are feminists, but also groups such as the queer persons should also be included. So, what is interesting when the feminist prince of the internet talks about especially access, it will talk about access to information, but also it will talk about the access to technology, but also it talks about the usage of technology. Like I said before, also, when you have access, how are you using it? Are you meaningfully using it? When you're meaningfully using it, are you able um, to ensure that women and queer persons actually have the right to be able to code, have the right to design, also have a right to adopt, and also sustainably use ICT and reclaim their spaces, especially on the internet, as a platform for them to be able to express, for them to be able to creatively advocate, but also challenge some of the social cultural happenings, especially on the internet, some of the sexism, some of the stereotypes, some of the discriminations that happen into these spaces. And because it covers a wide range of issues when we talk about a feminist principle of the internet, just like we have the African feminist think principles, it's also important to have one for the internet. Yeah.
Yeah, and for those listeners who are interested in hearing more about the feminist principles of the internet, you just need to go to feministinternet.org. And there's, opportunities to even contribute and to look at those principles there as well. So, um, obviously we've spoken quite a mixed bag of what is happening negatively, but then also the opportunities. And I'm just curious, what gives you hope despite of all of those things, despite the rise in technology facilitated violence? What are those moments in your journey that really reminds you that the fight is worth it?
I think what really gives me hope is the ability and the stories that I hear of the feedback, that I get from especially women who have been able to be beneficiaries, who have been able to be beneficiaries of work that we continue to do to ensure that there is an open, there's a free, there's a safe, there's a secure internet. I often tell people that for you to be able to make change, if you are able to change one person, that is change. That one person is also able to change one another. Seeing for me people who are able to benefit from the work that we do, who are able to start up initiatives to scale in various areas, for me, that gives me hope. That shows that the trainings we are doing, the advocacy that we're doing is actually working because more people are learning, more people are scaling, more people are creating. And that is what we want to see, that if we are doing something meaningful, we should be able to embrace that it's not only you or gatekeepers in this work, but how are we able to see that the work that you're doing is also being replicated. So, me seeing young people take up spaces um, to be able to create initiatives of their own, to be able to apply the knowledge that they have achieved. For someone to just say that, oh, I was able to use the knowledge that you got, and I was able to use it, especially for maybe applying for a grant, applying for a course at the university, that gives me hope, and that makes me think that I am on the right path. Yeah.
Thinking about our conversation so far, and for all of those our listeners, especially young people listening to our conversation and that are passionate about digital rights and safety, but don't know where to start, what would you say to them?
Thank you. I think for me is about starting where you are, starting with what you have. This could be with the skills you have. This could be with the network you have. This would be with the resources you have. And as I can draw this from my personal journey. When I didn't look at money, but I looked at what is it that I need to be able to prepare myself for the job market. So I was able to start with volunteering, but I was also lucky enough to get people along the way who are able to hold my hands. These are friends who are able to sort of maybe tell me, "Oh, this is happening, this and this is happening." But also, I was able to also um, just walk to people and tell them who I am, what I can do, what I'm able to do, and also like yeah, the sales that I have. So what happened was there was this conference. It was my first time to travel outside the country, and there was this organization that had reached out. Sometimes you wonder why certain things happen, but I think it's the right time, right? So they'd reach out. It's Impactor magazine to write an article, and I gave it my best. And one thing again is give everything you do, give it your best. Um, have people who are able to validate what you can do. So then, what I did was that was my first time to travel. It was in Addis, and I'd gone for a conference for training. So when I met, I had started developing passion for writing. So I met one of the editors of Global Voices, and I just showed her this is the work that I've been able to write on Impactor magazine. I'm interested in writing. Just after about a month, she reaches out, and then she gave me my first gig actually to write, to contribute on a project on internet freedom. And I was able to write about the social media taxation in Uganda. And luckily enough, it was also a paid gig. So that made me start to be visible. Sometimes you don't have to wait for people to create spaces for you, but you're supposed to create sometimes spaces for yourself. So I started doing that. And that also made me to be known, and also it led to being able to create resources that when they Google about Sandra, then people can find something that I've been able to do. So that is also one thing I learned, that to be able to to have something that associate with your name. What is that one product that you'll be able to, is it usually it's very important to be able to embrace creation of resources. It could be article, could be a research. That way sometimes people don't know you, but people will know your work, and when you speak, people will associate your work with your name, and that also was a good stepping stone for me. But even before that, when I just started volunteering, I remember I used to literally go to Eventbrite, look at conferences, meetings happening, like just go there, show up, learn as much as possible, network with people, and also I also embrace the power of the internet, especially social media, to be able to share what I've learned. It could be even that when you post, that no one will ever like your post, but that does not mean that you're not seen. Just continue doing what you're doing. Don't give up. I think the power of consistency is very key. So I think for me is doing the little, being consistent, having the right network, the right mentors who are able to show you, give you genuine feedback to improve yourself. I think that is how I would sum it up in regards to for anyone who is trying to find themselves, improve their career path. That's the advice I would give to them.
It's been such a pleasure discussing this very important issue with you, one that you're clearly an expert in. It's been such a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Thank you too for having me.
So that was Sandra Aceng sharing not just insight but urgency, reminding us that the future of technology must be inclusive, must be ethical and safe for all, especially women and marginalized voices. And As AI advances and our lives become more digitalized, we cannot afford to leave gender issues out of technology conversations. Sandra's work is a powerful call to action for governments, to developers, media platforms, law enforcement, and all of us to center women's experiences and safety in every aspect of the digital world. So, thank you so much for listening to her Media Diary today. If you found today's conversations inspiring, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone that needs to hear it. And if you'd like to join me on an episode of the podcast, send me an email at yemc@africanwomeninmedia.com. And you can also visit our website, hermediadiary.com, for more episodes of Her Media Diary. So listen to the podcast on your favorite podcasting platforms and tune in to our partner radio stations from anywhere across Africa. And don't forget, join the conversation using the hashtag Her Media Diary. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and keep amplifying the stories that matter. And like Sandra said, build your network, do it, and be consistent while you do it. Take care.